What's up everyone, this is Luke and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be looking at the best budget options in Fantasy Premier League for the 2018-2019 season. Before we get stuck in, I do just want to quickly say if you are interested in seeing more fantasy football content or betting related content and sports related stuff in general, I've got loads more of all of that coming your way pretty soon, so make sure you hit that subscribe button if you do want to stick around and see more. Without further ado, let's get stuck in and look at these best budget options. I'm going to start off with the goalkeepers and we're going to be looking up to a maximum price of 4.5. We're going to be doing the same with the defence, and then in midfield we're going to be looking up to 6.5, and then in the forward range we're going to be looking up to 7.0. I think it's important to make sure we distinguish these as the budget brackets. We don't want to go any higher than that. We're probably getting into the mid-tier range there. So it's important that we look at just the cheap options. I'm also going to cover all four in this video, so I'm going to try and fly through them as quickly as possible, starting with the goalkeepers. The goalkeepers are a bit of an interesting one because there's many 4.5 options that are nailed in their teams. So I'm going to quickly look through now and say who I think could be potential options at 4.5. Begovic at Bournemouth, nailed on. They've got a good run of fixtures at the start of the season. Ryan at Brighton, exactly the same. He was a really good point scorer last season. Could he do it again? Who knows? I'm going to be skipping over a few of the goalkeepers here because if I don't think they're an option to start the season, so I'm going to be avoiding a lot of them. I don't like to take goalkeepers and defenders from newly promoted teams. And also, if I don't think the goalkeeper is nailed on, I'm not going to be covering them either. Same with the defence, as I just mentioned. If I started to go into detail on every single player, this would probably be a 3-hour long video. Lursel at Huddersfield, he could be an option. He was another good point scorer last season, and who knows if he could repeat that this year. Ward is an interesting one. I know I said that I'm not going to be covering non-nailed on players. It looks like Kasper Schmeichel could move. Who knows at this time, but if he does, then Ward could become an option. So he's not an option right now, but he could be worth considering if Kasper Schmeichel makes a late move in the window to a club like Chelsea. We've got no options at Newcastle. At Southampton, it's a little bit unclear who the nailed on goalkeeper is, but I think it's going to be McCarthy. He could be an option. At Watford, Ben Foster, as you can see, it's greyed out. He's currently in my team, although I've done about 300 drafts so far, so who knows if he's going to make it into the final squad come the game week 1 deadline. We will see. Fabianski's a big favourite this year. I think he's the most highly selected 4.5 goalkeeper. Doesn't surprise me. He did very well last year, so a lot of people that just go by last year's points, they'll be selecting him. Personally, I'm not sure. He's been in a few of my drafts. West Ham's fixtures are a bit hit and miss early on in the season. They tend to have a really good fixture and then a really bad one. But yeah, he's at a new club now. Last season he was at Swansea, a very defensive team in that season. And now he's at West Ham. They're not the same squad. They're definitely not a highly defensive team. So who knows if he can repeat the feat of what was going on last season. Patricio at Wolves is another big favourite this year. Wolves look like they have done some very good transfer business. Personally, I'm still steering clear, particularly in the defence and goalkeepers, just because who knows how they're going to settle, who knows how they're going to adjust to the Premier League. We're then getting down to the 4.0 goalkeepers, and as I can tell at the moment, I don't think there are any 4.0 goalkeepers expected to start, except for maybe Stekelenburg in week 1 and 2 if Pickford isn't back, but I expect Pickford to be back pretty soon. Moving on to the defenders now in the 4.5 range. Callum Chambers at Arsenal. He's an interesting one because it looks like he actually might play. At this time, he's not nailed, so I'm not going to recommend him as a shout, but he's definitely worth adding to the watch list. Arsenal's first 2 fixtures are horrendous, but after that, they get a little bit easier, and he could be a steal at 4.5 in the Arsenal defence. But time will tell whether or not he will actually play or not. Bournemouth, you've got a number of options. I'm really not sure who's nailed here. Old favourite Charlie Daniels, he's definitely got competition now that they've made some good signings. The rest of the defence, I don't know. I'd perhaps look to Adam Smith, but honestly, I'm not going to tip any Bournemouth defender as one of the best picks you could make at this time. Moving on to Brighton, and I think Lewis Dunk is a really good shout, to be honest. Last season, he scored a massive 4 own goals. Now, this isn't what you want in your fantasy team, but this has to be an anomaly. It has to be an outlier. Surely, he must have just been unlucky with that. And yeah, to score 4, you've got to be in some pretty bad defensive positions, I guess. For him and Duffy top the table for touches in the box from centre-backs or defenders. I'm not sure if that stat's 100% right, but I know that they're getting a lot of headers on crosses from corners and set pieces. Duffy, I think, is injured or has had surgery. Not 100% sure on that either, but either way, out of Dunk and Duffy, I would definitely be looking at Dunk, and I don't think he's a bad option at all, so his name is worth bringing up here. From Burnley, I don't think you've got any 4.5 defenders this year, which is a shame. Last year they had loads of 4.5 options, but not this year. Again, Cardiff I'm avoiding because they're a newly promoted team. James Tompkins at Crystal Palace has a lot of early backing. A lot of people are picking him. He was a really good set-piece threat at the end of last season, and I definitely think he's worth considering this year. If you're going to look towards a Crystal Palace defender at 4.5 at least, Tompkins is probably your man. At Everton, I'm not sure. It looks like Jagielka might actually play. Ashley Williams has gone out on loan. Holgate is now injured. Jagielka's about 73 years old, so I probably wouldn't want him in my side. However, you know, he could be nailed on at 4.5, so he might be worth considering. That is, if Everton don't bring in a new defender. It looks like they might be signing Yerry Mina from Barcelona. I don't expect him to come in at 4.5. I expect him to probably be 5.5 due to his massive aerial threat. But if they don't bring anyone in, then who knows? Jagielka, for some reason, might be your man. Fulham, again, avoiding those. Huddersfield, they've got some options, but I don't love them. I think I would rather have Lursel in goal. Just not sold on Huddersfield players in general, really. I thought they were very good in the Championship, but when they made the leap up to the Premier League, I think they looked a little bit out of their depth. To be honest, it wouldn't surprise me if Huddersfield did get relegated this season. I hope they don't. I quite like their manager, but yeah, time will tell on them. I don't want to be bringing any Huddersfield defenders into my team. At Leicester, it doesn't look like any of the 4.5 options are nailed there. Fuchs has got competition. Simpson's got competition. I can't see any of them being nailed. Liverpool is the same. And then it gets to Newcastle. Dummett is Newcastle's first choice left back. He could be an option at 4.5 and Yedlin could be an option at 4.5 as well. Unfortunately for Newcastle, their fixtures are the worst in the league for the start of the season. They have by far the toughest start, so I would generally be avoiding their defenders. At Southampton, you've got some options. You've got Cedric. He's the pick of the bunch, but honestly, I'm not sold on him. He gets in a lot of attacking positions, but people say this every season. Cedric could be the man, and he's never been the man. I'm not having him in my team, but I know a lot of people are interested in him, and he is a 4.5 option. Southampton's fixtures are good as well, but Mark Hughes is not a good manager. I can't see them keeping loads of clean sheets, but who knows, I could be eating my words in a few months' time. Watford have maybe got some options. If I was to go with any of them, I would probably pick Kabasele, but I don't think that any Watford defender at this time is worth considering. I'd probably rather have Ben Foster in goal. One player that is worth keeping an eye on is Kiko Firmino. Last season he was sort of played on the wing at times, so if he does actually nail down a wing position listed as a 4.5 defender, he could be coming into a lot of people's teams, so you should keep an eye on that situation. West Ham might have some options, although I'm not really sure who's nailed for them. I'm not sure how they're going to settle. They've got a new manager in Manuel Pellegrini. Obviously a very experienced manager, but I don't think he's the best manager in the world. I think he's a good manager. They've made some good attacking signings. But defensively, I want to see how they sort of bed in and settle in to start the season off with. Wolves actually do have some fantasy options. Despite the fact they're a newly promoted team, a lot of people are looking at Doherty at 4.5. He could be an option. And there's the newly bought in Johnny as well, although he's a bit more defensively minded, whereas Doherty sort of tends to get flying up on the right wing. But is this going to happen in the Premier League? We don't know. We don't know if they're going to continue this hugely attacking wing-back situation in the Premier League. They might play a little bit more defensively and a little bit more reserved. Premier League is worth a lot. Teams often change their style when they get promoted, so we're going to have to see on that one. I don't expect them to suddenly turn defensive. I do think he will keep getting forward, but they are more likely to concede goals, and he's also less likely to get attacking returns. So with regards to Doherty, again, he's a wait and see. We're then moving on to the 4.0 options, and there are actually some 4.0s that might play. At Cardiff, yes, promoted team, but he's 4.0. I think it's a different situation when you're looking at the incredibly low price of 4.0. I think you could look to any team. If any team has a playing 4.0 player, you should probably be getting them in as your absolute backup option. And Peltier might be playing for Cardiff. I think he's nailed on, actually, if he's not injured. There's another couple of 4.0s as well. The pick of the bunch is Wan-Bissaka. He looks like he's nailed on to start for Crystal Palace. He started pretty much every single one of their pre-season friendlies, and he's highly liked by the Crystal Palace fans. His competition for the position is Joel Ward, who is pretty terrible. I think Wan-Bissaka plays, and I think he's going to be in pretty much everyone's teams come game week 1. The other options at 4.0 that people are looking at is Bednarek. I don't know, at Southampton. A lot of people are thinking that Bednarek might play. Personally, I think he won't play. I think Vestergaard will play, or he might be a massive rotation risk at best. The other option, the final option at 4.0 is Bennett from Wolves. He is another one that looks like he might play, although if I was to pick one 4.0, which I am at the moment in Wan-Bissaka, if I was to pick two, I think I would probably go with Peltier from Cardiff. He looks the most second nailed on 4.0 defender anyway. Let's move on to the midfielders now. In this midfield price bracket, 6.5 is the limit that we're going up to. Yeah, we might be verging on mid-price there. Not really sure, but we're going to go up to 6.5. And I am going to try and fly through these because there's obviously a lot of midfielders below this price bracket, so I'm just going to pick out the picks of the bunch. Fabregas and Pedro definitely start that list. They are going to be potentially very good or potentially very bad, but we will wait and see. I'm probably going to avoid them, although a lot of people are picking Pedro to start the season. I think he's a rotation risk. I think Fabregas might turn out to be the better option of those two, but I won't be picking either of them in my side to start the season. Milivojevic, he's a bit too expensive for me this year. I will be avoiding him. Richarlison, a lot of people are picking Richarlison. I think he's probably going to be one of the most highly owned 6.5s, especially from sort of veteran fantasy players. He could be an option. He's a very selfish player, which is what you need for fantasy. Everton, I'm not sold on them. I'm still not sold on Everton, so I need to see what they can do in action. I need to see that they've sort of changed the way they were playing from last season. I know they've got a new manager, but that can take some time to change. And they've not had good pre-season results. And I know pre-season doesn't mean much. They haven't looked good, so I want to make sure that they look good, and Richarlison looks good before bringing him into my own team. He might be worth considering for yours, though. He gets in a lot of dangerous positions and takes a lot of shots as well. Sessegnon at Fulham, I think he's worth shouting because I think he's absolutely not an option. He's probably going to be playing left back, listed as a midfielder. And yes, he might be an attacking left back, but he's sort of reverse out of position, as they call it. The unfavourable out of position. If you're listed as a midfielder, but you're playing as a forward, that is out of position and everyone is all over them like a tramp on chips. If you're the other way round, it's the opposite. You don't want your midfielder playing in defence because they don't get the clean sheet points and they don't get forward as much as you would like them to. Maddison at Leicester could be worth a shot. He looked very good in the Championship. He's sort of the Mahrez replacement, it seems. He could be nailed on, but I think he's going to be a rotation risk. He's very young, very inexperienced, but he does look exciting. He might be worth a bit of a punt. Another one worth considering to start the season, if you're going to have an early wild card, I think Mata genuinely might be worth considering at United. I think Mourinho is too defensive. I don't think his team is really worth considering, but at 6.5 and Mata takes some set pieces, he looks like he's going to be playing one of the forward positions at 6.5 in a team that have some very good players and sort of have an easy run of fixtures. Mata might be worth a punt at least for 2 or 3 games if you are planning on wildcarding early. If you're not, and I don't like to plan to use my wildcard, I won't be looking at him, but he could be worth a short-term punt, as I say. One of the picks of the bunch is Jota from Wolves. A lot of people are bringing him in. He's out of position as far as I'm aware. I think he's going to be playing on the left wing / false 9. He could come inside at times, but he is listed as a midfielder. Now, Wolves fixtures aren't amazing to start the season with, but if he is going to be playing in a forward role and listed as a midfielder, that potentially provides incredible value. If I don't say anyone's name, then I personally don't think they're an option. So perhaps you disagree with me, perhaps you think I've missed someone, but if I do miss someone, it is intentional. I'm not mentioning the names because I don't think that they're an option. Hoylett at Cardiff costs 5.5. Again, not someone I'm going to be bringing in, but he takes a lot of set pieces. I think he might be on penalties, not 100% sure with that. It could be Rawls. But Hoylett was Cardiff's top scorer last season, got a lot of assists. He was involved in a lot of stuff. Now, he's been in the Premier League a few times and he's always pretty much failed to deliver. And that's the reason I'm going to be avoiding him, but he might be worth considering. Cardiff's first 3 fixtures are pretty good. They're pretty much the best they could be, but then they do turn quite bad. Seri at Fulham at 5.5. He's an interesting one because he's actually sort of a defensively minded player, but he does take set pieces and he does provide some sort of attacking input from time to time. Now, whether he provides enough to be priced at 5.5, but again, as he's taking set pieces, probably a little bit expensive. I'd prefer to, you can sometimes pick up a 4.5 that takes set pieces. So yeah, a little bit too expensive. Fernandinho and Gundogan, they're both rotation risks. Well, Fernandinho is probably the more nailed of the two. These are sort of weird because they play in defensively minded positions, but they actually provide an incredible points per million. They tend to actually give good returns when they play because all of the Man City players are involved in every attack. They do chip in with the odd goal, the odd assist, and this just makes their value incredible for the price. However, the drawback of these is that they are rotation risks. They might not start, they might get sub, but also they take up an important Man City slot in your team. You can only have 3 players from a team, and I think I'm going to be starting the season with 3 Man City players that aren't either of these two. Can you afford to take up a spot in your team with one of these defensively minded players? Perhaps you can. I personally can't, so I'm going to be avoiding them. Atsu's an interesting one at Newcastle. Priced at 5.5, takes penalties, gets a lot of attacking input, but can be a rotation risk. He's very selfish, and Newcastle's fixtures are tough, but he's worth monitoring for sure. Rafa Benitez doesn't really play attacking football. He does favour a defensive approach, so that limits him. From the 5.5s from Newcastle, I would definitely prefer him over Shelby if it looks like he's playing. Deulofeu at Watford's getting a lot of love. Again, he's sort of a selfish, attacking-minded player, but he's a massive rotation risk. He's not nailed on him. He does tend to come off around the hour mark, and you know, it's horrible when players come off before that hour mark and you get the 1-pointer. You don't even get the 3 points for a clean sheet potentially and the 60-minute mark. I'm going to be avoiding him for that reason, at least short term, but he could become an option at that very nice looking price point. We're now dropping down the price, and I have to say the best 5.0, probably the best value midfielder on the whole game is probably Kante. I'm joking. Why do so many people pick Kante? Stop making the argument that 100 points, a 2 or 3 point a game from a 5.0 is good value. It is not. So stop being stupid. Why do so many people own him? I cannot believe it. Stop picking Kante in your team. Unless you're one of my mini league rivals, in which case, captain him. Get him in and captain him. He's very good value. I changed my mind. Some people are looking at Jorginho in that Chelsea side. He could be a bonus points magnet just because he plays so many passes, but I don't expect him to be involved in attacking enough for me to justify a place in my side. A lot of people are also looking at Kearney from Fulham, rumoured to be on quite a lot of set pieces, although from what I've seen from pre-season, I actually think that he might have lost out on some of those duties. So he was in one of my first drafts of the squad, I think my first one and a few going forward after that. But with what I've seen from pre-season, I think I'm going to be avoiding him. Kennedy at Newcastle, he's probably their best option. I mentioned Atsu at 5.5, but I think I'd rather have Kennedy at 5.0 once the Newcastle fixtures turn. He did very well for them last season. He's definitely their key player in the side, does provide attacking returns, and could be very good value at 5.0. He's nailed on to play every game, except for against his parent club, Chelsea. Neves at Wolves, he's another Kante, in my opinion, one of the most overvalued fantasy picks. I don't see the appeal. Yes, he's on penalties, but that's about it. A penalty taker at 5.0 isn't the worst decision in the world. Yes, he could get you goals every now and again, but I wouldn't want to be playing him. I would rather have one of the Wolves options that provide better value, such as Jota. I don't want to be taking up 2 midfield spots with Wolves players to start the season with at least. Costa provides better value at 5.0 for Wolves, but he could be a massive rotation risk. So he's an avoid for me, as I prefer to go for nailed on players at all times. Getting down into this 4.5 price range, Hudson-Odoi at Chelsea. He's going to be playing at the very start of the season, but he's very young. He looks really good, but I expect him to lose his place to Hazard once he returns, if he stays at Chelsea, that is. But he might be worth a punt for 1 or 2 weeks. We'll wait and see on that one. He's actually in my current draft. I'll probably bring him out, being honest. But if something happens in the Hazard situation, maybe it looks like he's going to be back a few weeks later than expected, I might go with him. Of all the other 4.5s, I would say Chalobah and Masuaku are the ones that you want to look at. Masuaku might play some time at left back, but if he does, he's still very attacking. He does like to get forward. Pellegrini likes him to get forward as well. So he could be a good option providing width. But Chalobah is the pick of the bunch for me. At Watford, he does like to be involved. He does get forward. If he is going to be fit, time will tell, but he is the pick of the bunch for me if you want a nailed-on 4.5 player that could get you the odd attacking return. Finally, moving on to the forwards now, starting at the 7.0 range and moving our way down quite quickly. There aren't that many forwards on the game, and there are even fewer that are actually an option, so we're going to talk about a few of them. Zaha, personally, I'm going to be avoiding him. Don't know if he's going to be playing up front. He looks like he will, so he could be an option. He wins a lot of penalties, does get forward. Crystal Palace have got some good fixtures. I just think there's better value to be had, and that's why I'm going to be avoiding him. Tosin looks like he could be an option. He's one that I'm actually a little bit scared of. A lot of people have him in the team, and he looks like he's nailed on. Penalty taker 2, potentially. Whether it's him or Sigurdsson, I'm not sure. But I'm definitely scared of not owning him. I think he could get some returns early on, especially with Everton's favourable fixtures. Arnautovic, I think he's the pick of the bunch. West Ham's fixtures start pretty tough, but I think he's the best one here. He's the best value. At 7.0, I just can't see me not starting the season with him. He's a perfect fantasy striker because he's selfish. Does look like West Ham might be playing 2 up top, which is a little bit disappointing. I'd prefer him to be the lone striker and the sole focus of the attack, but he's just so selfish and so talented that at 7.0, he's got to be in my team. I don't see me going without him unless he gets injured. Going down to the 6.5 range, Josh King. Looks like he's going to be a good option. He's a rotation risk, but I think he's on penalties. Scored a few goals in pre-season. He looks like Bournemouth's best or most important player, other than maybe Ake back in defence. Glenn Murray looks like he's going to be suffering with age this season. Chris Wood at Burnley. A lot of people are looking at Chris Wood, but with Burnley's first Europa League campaign, I'm probably going to be avoiding him. Burnley aren't known for their rotation, but with Europe, they're going to have to start rotating that side, so he's probably not nailed on. And that's why I'm going to be avoiding him. Benteke, always tempting for me. Villa fan, he was a legend at Villa, turned to absolute shit since leaving, must admit. He's tempting me. It looks like he's going to start for Crystal Palace up front with Zaha. I don't know. I just don't know. I'm probably not going to pick him, but I am tempted. I'm not going to lie. Mitrovic at Fulham. It's a wait and see on him. Chicharito. I'd rather go with Arnautovic. Callum Wilson and Jermaine Defoe. If one of these gets injured, I think the other one becomes a very good option. But with both of them fit, neither of them are an option. You need it to make sure that the one is nailed and playing with Josh King. Josh King tends to sit in behind one of these two. You're going to need one of these to be injured if you do want to look at bringing the other one in. Charlie Austin and Manolo Gabbiadini, they're a bit of an exciting option, and the problem is they always look like an exciting option in fantasy, but then Austin inevitably gets injured and Gabbiadini inevitably misses 29 shots every half of football. At 6.0, they genuinely offer an option. Gabbiadini looks like he's going to be slightly more nailed, with Austin perhaps rotating with Long. But at 6.0, they've got to be tempting. They do look incredibly tempting. If Long gets injured or Gabbiadini gets injured, Austin looks like the man. As long as he's fit, he scores goals. He takes penalties. He is a goal scorer. And if he's nailed, I will definitely be looking at bringing him into my team. Gray at Watford, he looks like he might actually become an option. But again, we need to make sure that he's nailed on. Continuing to go through the list, some of these are rotation risks. They could be good. Danny Ings, if he gets a move to any other side in the league, at 5.5, he could provide incredible value. It looks like he might be going to Palace. Maybe he'll go to a different team. But if he does and he starts at 5.5, he is another good goal scorer, and he's going to be a lock in a lot of people's teams, I think. Some people are looking at Jimenez at Wolves, but he's a rotation risk. Rotation risks aren't my cup of tea in general. Sorloth is one at Palace. A lot were looking at him at 5.0, but it doesn't look like he's nailed on. I don't think he's going to play. He's pretty terrible, putting it bluntly. I can't see any of these other players being options. Again, Bonatini, he'll probably bag a few goals, but it's just not nailed on to play, and that's not the type of player you want to be looking at. If you're going to bring in a 4.5, most people are looking at Kamara, but you would only do that if you're looking to play 5 in midfield or 4-4-2. I don't like 4-4-2 myself. I would be playing 3-5-2 if I had 2 up front. But the issue with bringing in a 4.5 that a lot of people own, if he doesn't start playing, which would be expected, I don't expect him to play, then a lot of people are going to start getting him out. And when you've got a high ownership player that doesn't play, their price starts to drop very quickly. And that is the danger in bringing in a highly owned player that doesn't play. So it's worth remembering that if you are considering bringing Kamara into your team. The advantage that he does offer is that he actually might get some minutes, whereas the other 4.5s might not. That's going to bring an end to this pretty long video. If you have stuck through it with me to the end, I do appreciate it. I would love to hear from you as well. If you've got any thoughts or questions, make sure you drop them down in the comments below. I try to reply to pretty much everyone where possible. If you have enjoyed the video, hit that like button. And if you do want to stick around for more, then make sure you subscribe with notifications turned on. I'll see you again in another video. And until next time, I hope you have a great day.